One, you are live. Wait. You are live.
Good evening. I'm Cheryl Lowry, and I serve as the CEO of the Joseph and Evelyn Lowry Institute of Justice and Human Rights. I'm here to welcome you this evening to an event we created over the last 72 hours in response to conversations with students about the national crisis we face on gun violence, and specifically the targeting of assaults on Black men, women, and children, as evidenced by the recent murders of Daunte Wright, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Adam Toledo, and so many others. These violent acts of racism must be stopped, and our voices matter in movements for justice and human rights. My parents' legacy inspired people across the world. It was because they refused to be silent. They consistently engaged in the struggle for justice, and they believed in collaboration and coming together to uplift, to encourage, and of course, to strategize. Tonight, we gather in that spirit, and we remember those we've lost far too young, and to be emphatic in our stance that Black lives matter. We will keep resisting and working to eradicate racism, and we will always say their names. I want to thank all of the participants that will join us this evening, each of you as leaders and scholar activists who are participating in tonight's program. Thank you. And now I'd like to bring up our hosts for this hour of reflection and healing. First, board member and director of programming, Blake Osborne, and also Dr. Kijua Saunders McMurtry, another Joseph Lowry Institute board member, who is also from Mount Holyoke College. They will lead us through this hour of remembrance and healing. Thank you for being here and welcome. We say their names.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lowry. And thank you for allowing us the space to speak in this regard. My name is Blake Osborne. As Ms. Lowry mentioned, I'm the Director of Programming for the Joseph and Evelyn Lowry Institute, and I'm honored to be joined by my co-host, Dr. Kijua Saunders McMurtry from Mount Holyoke College. How are you, ma'am?
I'm good, thank you, Blake. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's a somber evening on which we gather, but I'm so grateful for everybody who's going to be with us. We have a detailed program for you, and to give you a bit of an insight into what that program will entail, Dr. Kijua, do you mind telling everybody what we will be doing this evening?
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Blake and Ms. Lowry. Again, my name is Kijua Sanders McMurtry, and I join you from the land of the Nipmuc and neighboring Indigenous nations of the Wampanoag to the east. It's important that we recognize that many of us are on the occupied land of the Indigenous nations. I'm in Western Massachusetts with Mount Holyoke College, and we gathered together to create this program where we would have representatives, and we have some powerful leaders from Spelman College, Morehouse College, Clark Atlanta University, Agnes Scott College, and Mount Holyoke College. And we're thankful again to the students, college presidents, and other institutional leaders who will be with us tonight. We recognize the ongoing onslaught of violence towards community of colors and are in solidarity with those that experience anti-Asian and anti-Black racism, Islamophobia, homophobia, transphobia, and the many other isms that lead to the harm so many have experienced. As we were preparing for this vigil, we were reminded that life is still fragile, and that violence was really everywhere. And there were 4 shootings just in the 3 days that we prepared for this vigil. So we're going to have special spaces, both a prayer and reflection space. We're grateful to Daunte Hudson, a reverend who will be providing prayer and reflection at around 7 p.m. And to Senior Associate Dean of Students, Tamiko Jenkins from Agnes Scott College, who's also a licensed therapist, who will be providing a healing space for those of you that may need to take access of that, so that you can create more spaces for emotional, psychological safety in the midst of this trauma. I, like all of you here today, am a member of many communities defined by social and personal identities. We're remembering so many and holding a space for a multitude of families and communities in our hearts tonight who have experienced loss. There's no perfect way to memorialize everyone, but I can say with certainty that these protest movements, vigils, Memorials are born out of righteous rage, anger, pain, but most of all, love. Love for who we all are as human beings. I'm going to read a quote and then I'll ask Blake to come back on and introduce our speakers for tonight. This quote comes from Yuri Kochiyama. She says, "Just remember that what you put on your pedestal will be your main influence in your life. I am hoping you place love for your family, for your friends and humanity, service to your community, concern for human rights, justice, and human dignity on your pedestal. Life is not what you alone make it. Life is the input of everyone who touched your life and every experience that entered it. We are all a part of one another." Thank you again to everyone who's joining us. And Blake and I will be throughout the program introducing our speakers. So I'd like to ask Blake to introduce our speakers this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Kidra. And thank you again for everybody who will be joining us. And for those who are watching on Facebook, I understand right now we've had a minor glitch, which I have just rectified. So we should have gotten that fixed. But I want to continue by just talking a little bit about what we're going to get into this evening. As Kidra mentioned, this is a space where we're going to remember, we're going to heal, and then we're going to call to action and try to chart a path forward in these trying times. I have the distinct honor now of introducing our speakers of our first round, who will present in this order. They represent faith leaders, college presidents, and community leaders. I'm going to ask each speaker to introduce themselves, to give their affiliations, and to then provide brief remarks. Following these tributes, we will have a video in which was done by the Lowry Institute, which I think is just fantastic. And then Dr. Kidra will come back and we will then proceed to the next part of the program. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. George French, who is the president of Clark Atlanta University, who will be providing remarks. He will be followed by Reverend Kevin Muriel, the senior pastor of Cascade United Methodist Church. Following Reverend Muriel, we will have Alicia Morgan, the former state representative of Georgia and a Lowry Institute board member. And we will also have Daunte Hudson, a Lowry Institute change agent alumnus and a graduate of Morehouse College, class of 2015. Dr. French, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Blake. It's good to see you and to be here with colleagues. Very briefly, I'm on the beautiful campus of Clark Atlanta University, and immediately behind me is the bust of W.E.B. Du Bois. Dr. Du Bois, as we all know, was the most intellectual of intellectuals, a sociologist who served Atlanta University and did extensive studies in social justice throughout the nation, particularly in Philadelphia and Atlanta. And Dr. Du Bois left for us a rich legacy. It was a legacy that would be predicated not only upon faith, but upon education. And I would just remind you that here, the AUC Center, we are here for you. We are here for causes of resisting racism. And at the Academy, what we do is you find the confluence of theory and practice, so that after we protest in the streets, we make sure to grasp the theories that will allow us to also be in the boardroom. Godspeed to everyone on this call. Blake, thank you for your leadership. Thank you, Carol, and to the Institute, and to the memory of Joseph and Evelyn Lowry. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Reverend Muriel.
Thanks, Blake. Good evening to everyone. Grace and peace to each of you. I come to this moment honestly angry and still processing last summer. And now a new summer is dawning. And it is reminiscent of all we had to endure last year. It doesn't seem as if the proverbial knee has come off of our necks yet. I don't know in this moment, in this season, if healing is instantaneous as much as it is a process. And I come to this conversation, I come to this space, even as a faith leader, even as one who has deep hope and deep faith in the God of our salvation, the God of our weary years, the God of our silent tears, the God that our grandmothers and our grandfathers taught us about, the one that we have put our hope and our trust and our faith in. And I am deeply faithful to that belief that God will work things out. However, I still come to this moment not only as a pastor, but now as a father of two beautiful Black children. And I asked the question that the psalmist asked, how long, O Lord? How long? And maybe that's where you are this evening. You're asking how long? How long will people proclaim Black Lives Matter, but the actions don't align with the proclamation? How long? How long will we continue to see the deaths of our brothers and our sisters that not only have ended their lives tragically, but we have normalized this type of brutality? How long? And as we're asking how long, I also hold in tension the reality that we still have work to do. I was reminded of John 9:4, and every now and then I go back to this scripture, and I'm a pastor, so it would only behoove me to give y'all just a little bit of scripture. It says that as long as it's day, we must do the work. As long as it's day, we must do the work of the one who sent me, because night is coming when we won't be able to work. It seems dark right now. It seems like it's nighttime right now, but can I encourage you that it is still daytime? But even in the daytime, there are glimpses of night, but we've got to still work while it's day, because George Floyd can no longer work. Breonna Taylor's work is complete. Daunte Wright's daytime was taken from him. And the list goes on and on and on. And so what does that mean for us? It means that we must work. It means that we must not get weary in well-doing. It means that we must continue the pursuit of justice. We are in the midst of our modern civil rights movement. They're going to write about us. Stories will be told. History will be told about you. What work are you going to do? And so I pray for healing. I pray for peace. I pray for each of you. I pray that God would raise up in you a spirit of Amos that declares, we want to do justice. We want to see justice roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. We've still got work to do. I love each of you. I want to encourage you, and I'm in this with you because we've got work to do.
Thank you, Reverend Muriel. At this time, I'd like to call up Alicia Morgan, State Representative.
Thank you, Blake, and good evening to everyone. Reverend Muriel said a lot of what I was going to say, but that's okay. I'm going to say it in my non-preacher, born and raised in the NAACP, marched with Dr. Lowry as a student, Spelman graduate, Dr. Schmidt-Campbell way. You know, as I reflected on what I would say this evening, the first thought that came to my mind was the need to pray for the jurors who are sequestered in this moment, sitting with their thoughts, doing their own prayers, thinking about the things that they've seen in the last 3 weeks, for their lives will never be the same either. I pray for wisdom for them. They have a mighty weight on their shoulders. It is, yes, about the precious life of George Floyd. It is also about the precious life of many Black and brown people in this country. And I want them to feel that weight and that sense of responsibility. And I want to see justice. And I pray for justice. And I believe in justice. And many have asked, what do you think is going to happen? And, is it going to be like the rest of the trials? And I simply said, I still have, and I always will have hope. That's what we're required to do. And so it is my expectation that we will see justice. And I believe that justice will prevail. I also want to say to the leaders and the scholar activists who are on, I want you to have hope. As the pastor just reminded us of Galatians 6:9, let us not be weary in our well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. And in this moment, we feel weary. God knows we do. But I want you to place yourselves in the shoes of our forefathers and foremothers who made the choice, unlike George Floyd and Breonna and many others, who made the choice to stand on the front lines and sacrifice everything. But there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in this nation who fought, who sacrificed, some died, whose names we will never know. But they felt the calling just like each and every one of us on this Zoom feel. We feel called, we feel responsible, we feel that heavy burden. Many of our friends are watching Sunday night TV and reality shows, and we are here because we feel this calling. And so this is the moment where we may feel weary, and that's okay, but we have to keep going. We cannot faint. I think about all of the people who came before us, whose names we know and those that we don't, who felt this moment, who felt that weariness like we feel right now. But if they quit, if they gave up, if they lost hope, we wouldn't be here and have seen the progress that we've seen as a nation. And so if they didn't give up, we can't give up. And we can feel sad and we can feel angry and frustrated and disillusioned. Some of us need to stop watching the news, and I think that would help tremendously. But we cannot give up. We have to be encouraged. We have to lean on one another. We have to decide that this is our calling and we will continue on. That we will rest, but we will continue on. I want to thank each and every one of you for being with us tonight, for seeing this as important, to add your voice, to be a part of this movement. I am blown away by young people, whether it was me at Spelman marching to the Capitol to stop anti-affirmative actions or stopping some of the laws that put kids in adult prison, or young people who came before me who fought in the civil rights movement when other people said, just leave the laws the way they are, let's just accept things the way they are. But you have decided that you aren't going to accept things the way they are. And so you must keep fighting. You must keep your head up. You must decide that it's up to us and this is what we've been called to do. And so I leave you with my favorite quote. It's by Dr. Benjamin E. Mays. It says that every person is born into this world to do something distinctive and something unique. And if he or she does not do it, it will never be done. I want you to think about what that means. Think about all of the history makers whose names we do know, that if they didn't answer their call, if they didn't do the thing they were called to do, it would have never been done. And so the question is, what is it that you are going to do? Because if you don't do it, it will never be done. Keep fighting. We need you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you for those words. At this time, I want to call up Mr. Daunte Hudson. Mr. Daunte Hudson, graduate of Morehouse College and a former Lowry Institute change agent. And Daunte will also be leading one of our rooms that we'll talk about in a minute. Daunte.
Thank you, Blake, and Dr. Muriel. So good to see you, and Alicia and Dr. Schmidt-Campbell, and to every one of you who are change agents and world changers. It is an honor to be in this space, but I have to admit, like the previous, my previous brothers and sisters have already stated, I am honestly tired. It is a heaviness that seems to cycle, um, seems to not lift. And it seems as if, as I literally just felt, that we're all gasping for air right now. And there is something very pristine, I think, about tiredness. It goes on to Dr. Muriel's point that tiredness is not necessarily a sign of stress as much as it is a sign of work. Many of us have been working. We've been working our voices and our energy and our time, loving and pouring and saying names, and we have become tired. We have become fatigued, and even for this generation, I feel such the heaviness. But I am still reminded of what Paul mentioned when he was talking about the day of resurrection for believers, that he said that we don't doubt, we don't give up as people who don't have hope. We don't throw in the towel. This is not the end of what we're seeing. This is only the beginning of what it is that we are called to do. As another change agent, as Blake knows, Deshaun Adams is one of my good friends, but he has lived by a quote that I have begun to live by. And it goes along with what Representative Morgan said, that, but he said that someone is waiting on who you are becoming. Those are very powerful words that I think are very transparent and applicable to this time. There is still a desire for each and every one of you and us to continue to become. I know that much of what we have seen and much of what we have experienced in this world, and just over the last couple months, it could stifle our becoming, because we're stifled sometimes in our frustration, in our weariness, and our tiredness to continue the struggle and to continue the work that needs to be done. But I'm echoing Representative Morgan, if you stop now, someone is going to miss what it is that you have to offer to this world. It's interesting because throughout this time, I've also thought about the word narratives. And this is something that I believe we have the righteous audacity to begin to correct in this generation. And that's the power of the narrative. Since 1619, the narratives have not changed. Enslavement came and introduced to us what it was to be inferior in a world that was unknown to us. This America was unknown to us as African descent, people of African descent. Emancipation Proclamation came around and it seemed as if the narrative had changed, but all it did was skim the surface. Emancipation rolls around and we believe that we have a new narrative. But because the narrative wasn't changed, we had something called Jim Crow. We thought that 1964 would change some things, and Voting Rights Act, and it seemed that there was progress to be made, but narratives weren't changed. We had that same experience after 1964, thinking that we had progress, which we made come a long way, but new Jim Crow had introduced itself into our world, and mass incarceration, poverty, drug epidemics have plagued our communities. And again, the narratives had not changed. My brothers and sisters, we're on the cusp again of a moment that could really impact the future of this world. We have the opportunity in this moment to change narratives, to change the narrative of our world, to change the narrative of my daughter's generation, to change the narrative of her children's generation. That's why we can't stop. But there is someone waiting on who you are becoming, because this is an opportunity now. We have to change narratives for generations to come. And I'm so happy to be in this struggle with you, because I know that if we lock arms, there's absolutely nothing that we cannot accomplish together. And this is why this space is so important. We need to see each other. We need to see each other, and we need to remind each other that I see you and we're in this together. It's that code language that we have when we see somebody in the mall, that code language when we see each other out on the street. We keep our heads up because we know that we're still fighting this together. So I pray that even through this moment of reflection, as we move into these rooms, that we use this space as a safe place, so that we can continue to strengthen our connection, so that we can start to rebuild the narratives in our world and our society.
Thank you, Daunte, and thank you to all of our guests who've given tribute in this moment. Not to belabor the points, but I feel the words you've all said so passionately, and I admit for myself, this has been a difficult moment and a difficult week. As we plan this vigil, it began on Monday with the death of Daunte Wright. And then every day as we planned, we got a new death, which at the time, I don't want to use the word invigorate because it proved that we needed this moment, but God, it became hard. And I know that there are many of us dealing with the emotional repercussions of that. And for those who are in need of healing, who are in need of talking, we're going to provide a space for you, and we will do that shortly. But I want to transition at this point. I have a brief video that the Lowry Institute has put together. This was actually a video that we were showing for a different purpose, but I hope you will see that the power in it, in the words, they touch me. I hope they will touch you. I'm going to share this with you now. I hope that it comes through clear. God is with us. It will all be fine. And then after we transition from this video, Dr. Kijua will come back and tell you about the next part of the program.
Many thousands gone.
I was 1 year old when Stephon Clark was killed.
In 2009, when Oscar Grant was killed, I was 2 years old.
I was 2 years old when Elijah McClain was killed.
In 2010, when Aiyana Jones was killed, I was 3 years old. She was only 7.
I was 3 years old when George Floyd was killed.
I was 4 years old when Emmett Till was killed.
I am now 4 years old and Daunte Wright has been killed.
I was 5 when Rakia Boyd died.
In 2012, when Jordan Davis was killed, I was 5 years old.
I was 6 when Jamar Clark died.
In 2014, when I was 7 years old, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, and John Crawford were killed by police.
I was 7 when Yvette Smith died.
I was 10 years old when Ronald Madison was murdered.
In 2017, Jordan Edwards was killed when I was only 10 years old.
I was 11 years old when Sean Bell was murdered.
I was 11 when Stephen Clark died.
I was 12 when Trayvon Martin died.
I was 12 when Ronald Green died. I was 12 when Elijah McClain died. I was 13 when Rashad Brooks died. I was 13 when Breonna Taylor died.
I was 14 when Michael Brown died.
I was 15 when Kendra James and Latanya Haggerty were murdered.
I was 15 when Sandra Bland died.
When I was 17 years old, a senior in high school, I recall the rage boiling over in the city streets as people all over our country protested the verdict of Rodney King.
I was 17 when Ronald Madison was murdered.
I was 17 years old at the time of South Carolina State massacres. I was 18 years old when Fred Hampton was killed.
I was 20 when Ahmaud Arbery died.
I was 21 years old when Philando Castile, Alton Sterling were murdered. I was 23 years old when Stephen Clark and Bolton Jean were murdered. I was 23 years old when Ronald Green, Elijah McClain were murdered.
When I turned 28, in that year I recall the death, the murder, the killing of Freddie Gray and Walter Scott.
I was 28 when Alton Sterling was murdered.
At the age of 29, I'll never forget the death of Sean Bell.
I was 33 when Daunte Wright was murdered.
It's gotta stop. It's gotta stop.
May they all rest in peace and power. Many thousands gone.
Wow. That was such a powerful video. We want to thank everyone who participated in that video. We know that this can be incredibly overwhelming and traumatic for people. And so I want to remind folks again, we put the Zoom links on the Facebook Live. You can join either Dean Tamiko Jenkins, who is a licensed therapist, for a healing reflection in the Zoom link that we provided in the Facebook feed, or you can join Reverend Devontae Hudson for prayer. We wanted to provide these two healing spaces, recognizing that we all need to create self-care plans and opportunities for emotional safety. And so I just want to thank you all again for being here, but also want to make sure that you're able to take care of yourselves. I'd now like to ask Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell, who is the 10th president of Spelman College, a women's college here, well, actually in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm no longer located in Atlanta, Georgia, to join us for her reflection before we move on with the program. So thank you so much, Dr. Schmidt Campbell, for joining us, and we're honored to have you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanders McMurtry. And I want to say a special thanks to Cheryl Lowry for inviting me, and a thank you, Cheryl, to the work of the Lowry Institute. Your father was one of our real heroes. He was one of the real warriors in the fight for social justice. And I know that he would be incredibly proud of the work that you've done and the Lowry Institute continues to do. I want to begin my reflections by just having a moment of remembrance for all of the families of the victims of police violence. And I just want to take a moment of silence for us to just send those families our prayers and our love. Thank you. You know, I'm a mother. I'm the mother of 3 sons, and I'm the grandmother of 7 grandchildren. And there's not a day that goes by when I don't think about the threat that is out there for my sons, for my grandchildren, for everyone in my family. There's not a day that goes by as the president of Spelman College. And I know the same would be true for Dr. French and Dr. Thomas and Dr. Montgomery Rice, where we don't worry about the students we steward, our fellow workers in our college. And in fact, this summer, as you know, a student from Morehouse and a student from Spelman were victims of police violence. And what we know from that is that this is the pain of the violence is certainly felt by the victims, and it's felt by the families. But it also resonates out and ripples out into the community, into the cities, into our country. And over the past 5 years, it has really felt as though we are suffering from just a never-ending state of trauma, because that threat hangs over us. It hangs over us and it gives us an uncertainty as we walk out and we go about our lives. We know that we have an epidemic of police violence, just as we have a public health crisis with COVID. And we can't let ourselves heal by ourselves. We have to take action. We have to do work. And that reality is made very clear to us as we consider the pending verdict that's going to be delivered in the death of George Floyd. And whatever that verdict is, we still have work to do. Whatever that verdict is, there have been too many deaths and too little accountability. Whatever that verdict, we know this is not about one bad apple. This is about a system that is broken and that needs to be repaired. We know that we have to demand changes in policing. We have to demand changes in holding the police accountable. We have to demand justice in our criminal justice system. We have to demand that incarceration stop being another form of enslavement. And when this verdict comes, whatever it is, it will lead us to have strong emotions, and we'll have to have some space in order to live through those emotions. But once we do that, once we allow ourselves that time, then we have to get back to work. Alicia Morgan, you are so right. We need to pray for wisdom for those jurors, and we have to pray for energy and resilience for ourselves to get back to that work. And it is going to be long. One of the things the civil rights movement taught us is that no one is going to give us permission for our own freedom. We have to take the steps to win that freedom. And nobody will do it except us. It is on us. King knew that, Rosa Parks knew that, Fannie Lou Hamer knew that. We all knew that from the civil rights movement, and we have to know it now. That it is work that has to be done, and it's our work that has to be done. So in the days and weeks and years ahead, to my students of Spelman College, to my colleagues around the country, I am ready to stand in solidarity, arm in arm with you, and get down to do some real work to make some meaningful change. Thank you again so much, Cheryl, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for those beautiful words, Dr. Schmidt-Campbell. We are incredibly grateful to you for your leadership of Spelman College. I'd now like to take a moment to welcome an individual who we are really honored to have with us, a Morehouse College graduate, a creative, a producer, an entertainer, who will be reading a special poem. And April is National Poetry Month, but we also wanted to pay homage specifically to the brilliance of artists, Black artists, who around the country and around the world have been speaking to the resistance and the struggle of liberation that we needed to engage in. So I'd now like to welcome Derek Watkins to unmic and read the poem that he will share and any remarks he has. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. I'm reading I Too by Langston Hughes. I too sing America. I'm the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But I laugh and eat well. and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when the company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen, then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. I too, by Langston Hughes. Thank you, friends and family, for us taking this pause today to light the fire that's already inside of us. And I really see this time as an advantage for us, where we all, doesn't matter who you are, we all have at least 100 people on social media, at least. And when you start to think about how that can be multiplied, I see it as an incredible opportunity. The things that we're seeing right now are disheartening. On a higher level, in the last 30 days, we've literally had 47 shootings. In the last 30 days, we have had 47 shootings. So obviously, when you start to think about how the waterfall falls and what that cascade looks like, it's going to affect us all the more. And so this is an opportunity now for us to really mount up. We can vote with our dollar, really making sure that we're using an opportunity to get our dollar circulating in our community as many times as possible. Really being cognizant of the art, since we're on the art moment, but cognizant of what art we're taking in, who we're actually lending our eyeballs to stream, who we're reposting to stream. Does it really forward the movement? Because when you really start to look at it, art typically, there's been a lot of research, art typically is about seven to 9 years before policy changes. You see art make a big dent, and then about 7 to 9 years after that, you'll see policy change. And so what we show that we like, what we want to see, those numbers, they pay attention to that. And so I just know I've been very cognizant about what I'm streaming, and folks are saying what they think is hot and what they think is cool. And I'm just being real cognizant about what the messaging is on those things and not supporting those things. All of this stuff matters. This is a full court press that we have to have on this. There's a choir of voices that we have to have on this. And so I just want to encourage everybody, because I know in this moment, people have stress. I just laid down on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. I just had to lay down. I slept from 2 o'clock to 5 p.m. I was just like, I can't take it. I just laid down. And so with that, make sure you are getting proper exercise. Make sure you're eating a healthy diet. Make sure you're really taking care of your temple and your instrument, because you know you're going to be needing all of you. And I still think that there are things that are affecting us, even in COVID right now, that we haven't fully dealt with, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And so we have to be very cognizant on how we're protecting and covering ourselves and our fellow man and woman. And so that with that, you know, I just think that one of the most important things that we can do is manage our thought life. And it's very difficult to change a thought with another thought. You can change a thought with a word. And so life and death being in the tongue, we should really be very cognizant about what we are speaking. really cognizant about what we are speaking. I've seen some very interesting things happen in these last couple months. And it's just been me bridling my tongue and being very cognizant about what it is that I am speaking. So again, I encourage you all to find yet another accountability partner that has very close proximity to you, that can listen to when you're saying positive things. And, you know, this is not a time, I think, when we can say things like, let's see, I guess, let me see how to say this. I'm choosing I'm choosing to be careful of my language, to literally speaking the things that are not as though they were. Because I know in my highest self, that's the mandate that I have. And that's the way I can legislate my reality. And so I would just encourage everybody to really take inventory of what it is you're saying. You might need to do some form of a fast in this season, just so that, you know, you are that much more sensitive to the things that you're saying, the folks and pressures that you let come into your proximity. It's important. It's very, very important. And so with that, thank you so much. And let's continue. Power to the people.
Thank you, Derek. I mean, one of the reasons why I love just being around you is just the energy and the inspiration you give me. You know, for me, and I apologize if my voice sounds low, it's just, it's hitting me in this moment, the sort of the difficulties of the last year, and remembering that we've lost so many great Titans, we've lost so many leaders, the voices that I turn to, in particular, Reverend Lowry. In a moment like this, I miss his voice more than ever. But I want to not get down, but uplift. And in the spirit of uplifting, I want to invite our next speaker. He is a man who I have, from the periphery, witnessed doing great things, been so proud of what he's done for the city of Atlanta. He's been a true leader, and has really galvanized and been a voice for the youth. And that is Coach Lloyd Pierce, formerly of the Atlanta Hawks. Sir, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Blake. Thank you to Cheryl for inviting me to speak. I'm going to read a poem. It's "If We Must Die" by Claude McKay. If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and pinned in an inglorious spot. While round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh, let us die, let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed. In vain, then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us though dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave. And for their 1,000 blows, deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Like men, we'll face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying, but fighting back. If We Must Die by Claude McKay. I'm a coach. I've been a coach for about 20 years, 15 in the NBA. And, you know, I've been encouraged by the younger generation, by all of you students, by the Lowry Institute and what it represents. And I say this as I listen to everyone on here, and we're all tired, we're all weary, we're all fatigued. And that's been a common phrase that's been used on here. To parallel it with the sport world, you deal with fatigue all the time. And the one thing I'll say is what I'm most encouraged by your generation is the fact that you're here, the fact that you're continuing to fight, the fact that in that tiredness, you're continuing to work. Up until 5-6 years ago, I was just a Black man, and I thought that was tiring enough to be Black in America. But then I became a Black husband. 3 years ago, I became a Black father. 2 months ago, I was a Black father of 2. And so as you are weary and fatigued and tired, realize that you're just getting started. And so the pride that we have, that I have as a Black man, I've come to understand that my resilience is stronger than my fatigue. My pride is greater than my tiredness. And so the action, the ability to work, the ability to be resilient, the encouragement that you see from others, whoever just talked about accountability partner, Derek, I think you talked about that. It's important. And I think the words that you're hearing are important for you to remain resilient, for you to remain hopeful, to stay encouraged, even at your weakest and most vulnerable moment. And so continue to find your strength in these moments because someone is waiting on you. I didn't find true purpose of what me as a coach and a leader, what it really meant to be that until I got to Atlanta. And as Blake talked about, one of the first people I met was Reverend Lowry, followed by Congressman Lewis, and then continued on to Ambassador Andrew Young. And those have all been mentors of mine, but really they just passed down their leadership of what it means to fight and stand up for others, because it's preparing me now as a father and a husband and a leader, as it will continue to prepare you all. So as you're tired, weary, and fatigued, remain resilient and stay the course. And so thank you for allowing me to be on here, but continue to stay in that fight.
Thank you so much, Lloyd. We really appreciate you as a leader in Atlanta and your reading of that poem, which is so important, representative of the Harlem Renaissance and the ways that Black people have been speaking up for centuries in this country. So thank you for that powerful, those powerful remarks and that powerful reading. We'd now like to invite our student leaders, an incredible group of student leaders and student activists from around the country who are going to restore the humanity to the stories and the voices of so many we've lost. And I must admit, I'm a little bit emotional just thinking about it, but I'd like to ask the students in the order that we have put in the program to introduce yourselves, the college that you represent, and tell the story. And just remind the audience that one of the things that happens with many of the Black and Brown people who are murdered is that their stories get twisted and their stories are told without their humanity attached to it. And they're often demonized. And so we wanted to make sure for our vigil, representing our people, that we told these stories and the stories that we don't know. We call the names of people maybe whose stories we don't know, by ensuring that we were able to tell a different story of those individuals. So I'm going to ask Devin Marks to begin, and then students, if you will just go in the exact order in the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Devin Marks, and I am a graduate student at Clark Atlanta University. I'm so happy to be here, and I wanted to give a brief reflection of my own. What has been the most difficult thing to have to deal and handle about a lot of what's been going on is just not only the constant visual of having to see Black and Brown people, unarmed Black and Brown people being killed on camera, but also having to watch an entire system make excuses, create false narratives, spew lies, and just to defend an entire system that continues to encourage the system to act further on its targeted violence against us and our people. And the fact that we're also having to, we have to assimilate and tolerate this type of behavior and not react while others get to sit in their ignorance and their privilege. But I also have to remind myself to stay in my faith, and to understand that there is a higher power that will bring peace to a lot of what's been going on. I also want to give a tribute to Daunte Wright, who was killed. He was 20 years old. He was known as a class clown. Daunte Wright was a beloved father of a 2-year-old son. He loved playing basketball and was infamous for his left hand shot. Wright wanted to be an NBA player, a fashion designer, and a business owner. I will now read other names that have been killed at the hands of police officers. Rayshard Brooks, who's age 27. Daniel Prude, age 47. Ora Rosser, age 40. And Stephen Clark, age 22.
Hello, my name is Mariam Ware, and I'm a junior at Mount Holyoke College. I'll be giving a tribute to Atatiana Jefferson. Atatiana Jefferson was 28 years old. Atatiana was a hard worker who put herself through medical school and worked in pharmaceutical equipment sales. She was a caretaker for her mother and loved playing video games to relax, and spent the last hour of her life playing with her young nephew. I am now going to read other names who have been murdered. Alton Sterling, 37 years old. Michelle Clouseau, 50 years old. Freddie Gray, 25 years old. Janisha Fonville, 20 years old. Eric Gardner, 43 years old.
My name is I'm a sophomore engineering major at Morehouse College in Georgia. And here's a tribute to George Floyd. George Floyd was 46 years old. George Floyd was intensely proud of his roots in Houston's Third Ward and admired as a mentor in the place where he lived in public housing. George was known as Big Friendly to his friends and teammates. George was a father of 5 and beloved by everyone in his community. Here are names of others that were also killed. Akai Gurley, age 28. Gabriela Navarez, age 22. Michael Brown, age 18. Tanisha Anderson, age 37. And Matthew Williams, age 35.
Good evening. My name is London Johnson. I'm a graduating senior psychology major at Spelman College. To share a reflection of my own, it is disheartening to continuously reflect on the ways in which hate has manifested in the systems of this nation. Existing while Black has come with many trials and hardships, and despite the progress and changes that have been made, we as a unit have a far way to go. So I will be giving a tribute to Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor was 26 years old when she was killed. She was known as Bree by her friends and described as a cool cat by her aunt. She was passionate about her work as an emergency medical technician, and in her own words, she said, "Working in healthcare is so rewarding. It makes me so happy when I know I've made a difference in someone's lives." I will now speak the names of those who have lost lives due to police brutality. Mikhail Rose, 19. Xavier Hill, 18. Elijah McClain, 23. Frederick Cox, 18. And Andre Hill was 47.
My name is Mariam Keita, and I'm a first-year student at Mount Holyoke College. I was 16 years old when Stephon Clark was killed, and I'll be reading an excerpt from a letter that I wrote to my younger brother at that time. Dear Hassan, you are only 13, much too young for your response to another report of an unarmed Black man to be "Stop killing Black people." Much too young to have to think about these things. I wish that you didn't have to live in a world where you can find videos of people who look just like you do being gunned down for being Black in the wrong place at the wrong time. I know you don't understand why I fear for the days when you finally grow out of your baby face, but it's because I know that as you grow older, the world will become more dangerous for you. We heard the sound of bullets being fired at Stephon Clark in his own backyard because another phone was mistaken for another gun, and I was quiet. I reminded you again as you sat watching a marathon of bullets catch up with a man who could have been you to always make sure that you get a receipt when you leave a store, or at the very least, a bag with the logo on it, that a thin sheet of paper or plastic could lengthen your life. You were in the passenger seat as we sat still in the driveway, and I told you that it could save you from being another unarmed Black man, but in all honesty, I don't know that it can. I know that I certainly can't. Hassan, I want you to know that you can go far in this world, and I know that it still doesn't make sense to you why I hate when you wear hoodies and why I tell you not to walk with your hands in your pockets and to always be polite to strangers that you walk past, and why you can't afford to break the rules, whether spoken or unspoken. I wish that we lived in a world where it didn't have to make sense. I hope that these lectures that I give to you will always in some part stay with you, because though I will not always be driving you around, you will always be in need of them. I cannot stop you from growing or keep you from knowing, but I hope that it is never you. Love from your sister, Maryam. And I will be reading a tribute to Philando Castile, my apologies. Philando Castile was 32 years old, and he graduated from Central High School and began working for St. Paul Public Schools at the age of 19. One coworker described him as smart, overqualified, quiet, respectful, and kind. He was beloved by the kids at the schools where he worked. His friends called him Cheddar because he always had money and grinded on his job. Michael Brown, 18. Tanisha Anderson, 37. Matthew Williams, 35. Tony McDade, 38. Nina Pop, 28.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shanqua Laskew. I'm a graduate student at Clark Atlanta. I will recite a poem called This Is All I Want. Live, this is all I want. Can I live? Take my last breath when God calls me home. Not a bullet or bullets riddling my body. Not a knee on my throat. Not body slam. Not beaten to a bloody pulp. Why do you hate me so? I have done nothing to you. Why does my skin make you fear me, hate me, kill me? I have done nothing to you. I want to live. Let me live. This all I want. Now I will pay a tribute to Sandra Bland. She was 28 years old. She was excited about relocating back to work at her alma mater. She discovered Prairie View AME University after attending a national HBCU conference. As a native of Naperville, Illinois, she had played the trombone since 7th grade and was excited about the school music program, so she joined the marching band. She was called Chi-Town by her friends, described as bold and unapologetic, and involved in the NAACP and her sorority, Sigma Gamma Rho. Her friends and family members fondly remember live posts that she entitled Sandy Speaks, where she spoke up about racism and injustice. And to this day, she still speaks. Now here's tribute to other women that have lost their lives. Yvette Smith, 47. Terica Wilson, 26. Tanisha Miller, 19.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alicia Sawyer. I'm a first-year economics major and I attend Spelman College. My heart is heavy and I am with the families still grieving with everything going on, and my heart is with the families of all the people that we are giving tribute today. But I also want to speak about the victims that we do not know, that are not in our media, on our phones, and on our TV, who yet suffer the same fate. And I hope that their communities are still are trying to get peace, and as well as they continue on and fight this battle that we are all fighting and not just one. Now I will do a tribute to Tamar Rice. Tamar Rice was 12 years old. His mother, Samaria Rice, remembers that people would tease her and say that Tamar was going to be with her until he was 35 years old, as he was a mama's boy. Tamar was described as a jokester who was loving and funny. He enjoyed soccer, football, and basketball. He was also a part of the art program at school, as he loved to draw. He would be 19 if he was alive today, and his mother is certain he would have been playing sports since he was such an athletic kid. Now I'll read in some more names of the victims that are no longer with us today. Frederick Cox, 18. Andre Hill, 47. Casey Goodson, Jr., 23. Anthony Hill, 26. Walter Lamar Scott, 50.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Taylor Edwards, and I am a first-year social work student at Clark Atlanta University. My first traumatic experience with violence with the police was with Sean Bell. Sean Bell was from Southside Jamaica, Queens, just as I. We both attended the same elementary school. I was so young when this happened, I didn't fully understand the severity of the situation. Fast forward to now, the deaths of Black people done by the hands of law enforcement has continued, and the impact and the weight of this intensifies. I think that could have been my own brother. In most recent years, videos of police and civilian interactions have been able to be seen by millions of people via social media. These videos are not only seen by adults, but they're seen by our younger generation, the leaders of tomorrow. Watching someone who looks just like you die from the hands of police is triggering, it's heartbreaking, and it causes vicarious trauma, which is a form of post-traumatic stress, and it needs to end. Not only because Black lives matter, but because Black mental health matters. And these continuous killings and murders and encounters with the police are not helping the ongoing struggles that are already faced by Black mental health. Now I'll read a tribute to Botham John. He was 27 years old. His friends lovingly called him Bo, and his pastor said he was the light in a dark room and was completely devoted to his church, led by his faith and passion for gospel music. He grew up singing at the church in St. Lucia, where he was raised before moving to the United States. He went to college at Harding University, a private Christian school in Arkansas, and was involved in the choir at his school. He would often return to his home of St. Lucia to volunteer at a local orphanage where he ministered and mentored children. Now here's a tribute to others. Walter Wallace, 27. Jonathan Price, 31. Maya Hall, 27. Gabriela Navarez, 22. Miriam Carey, 34.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tatiana Jordan, and I am a junior at Agnes Scott College, and I am currently majoring in business management. And I would like to pay a tribute to India Cager. India Cager was 27 years old, a graduate from Duke Ellington School of the Arts, a beloved mother of 2 children, one being a small infant and the other being only 4 years old. She was a Navy veteran and a US postal worker. I will now be reading names of more victims to police violence. Corinne Gaines, forever 23. DeCynthia Clemens, forever 34. Rakia Boyd, forever 22. Ulterior Woods, forever 21, and Hannah Williams, who is forever 17.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brittany Saxon. I am a sophomore at Agnes Scott College. I major in public health with a pre-med focus, and I will be giving a tribute about Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin was 17 years old. When he was 9, he saved his father's life by pulling his father, whose legs had been injured, out of a burning apartment. Trayvon enjoyed video games and sports. He washed cars, babysat, and cut the grass to earn his own money. He loved music and ensembling, repairing dirt bikes. He hoped to one day fly and repair airplanes. We speak their names, so we will never forget those we've lost. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brittany. And thank you to all the students. Those tributes were absolutely amazing. It's wonderful to have people from Agnes Scott, from Spelman College, from Morehouse College, Clark Atlanta University, and Mount Holyoke College. We're incredibly grateful to the student activists, and we're grateful that you were able to speak their names. As you can see, so many of these people that we've lost were so young. I'd now like to welcome Dr. Diana Alvarez, who literally in the 11th hour agreed to join us as we realized that we needed to be sure to reflect on the life of, Adam Toledo, who we lost just after Daunte Wright. So Dr. Diana Alvarez, if you can unmic yourself and we can hear your tribute. She'll be leading a beautiful song and paying tribute. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Kijua. This tribute is for Adam Toledo, who was 13. He lived in Little Village, Chicago, and was one of 5 siblings. And he was loved by his family and his teachers, and he was known to have a passion for art. I was born by the river in a little tent, and just like that river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, and well, it's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, and well, I go to the movies and I go downtown. Somebody keeps telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, and well, then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, and well, it's been a long time coming. But I know, yes, I know, change is gonna come. I have an original song that is a song that I have written as in an effort to push back on all forms of violence in my family and in the world. And the title of the song is Todo se acaba. In the verses, I speak to generations past and present and future. I speak to my ancestors, and I speak to sisters like Breonna Taylor who have died because of bullets in the second verse. And the translation of the chorus is, even your hatred, even the violence of your voice, even the thought that you have the right to this body, everything will end. And it's a rejoicing that we will end all systems of oppression. Hasta el rencor, hasta la violencia de tu voz, hasta el pensamiento que tú tienes el derecho a este cuerpo. Todo se acabará. Toditito, 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 toditito. Ay, mamá, yo sé que tu lucha es para mí. Ay, abuela, yo sé que te ahorcan casi todos los días, pero vamos a curar nuestras heridas. Toditito, 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 hasta el rencor, hasta la violencia de tu voz, hasta el pensamiento que tú tienes el derecho a este cuerpo. Todo se acabará. Toditito, 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 toditito. Ay, hermana, yo sé que nuestra soledad nos mata y las balas también. Ay, mi hija, yo sé que tienes miedo de hablar, pero juntas vamos a luchar con manos juntas. Toditito, 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 hasta el rencor, hasta la violencia de tu voz, hasta el pensamiento que tú tienes el derecho a este cuerpo. Todo se acabará. Todo hasta el rencor, hasta la violencia de tu voz, hasta el racismo, tu maldito pendejismo. Todo se acabará. Thank you.
Yeah, I just don't have words, Diana. Thank you so much for that tribute, those words. Just thank you so much. And I know we're all in an emotional place, but that was just one of the most amazing things I've ever heard. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
At this time, I am going to call for a moment of silence. We've called the names, we've reflected, and I know that this is difficult, but now I'm going to call for a moment of silence for those who have been killed. There's never going to be a moment long enough to give those names justice. I mean, the only thing I could think of during those tributes that you students gave is just how long the list was and how unacceptable that was. But at this time, and I thank everybody who's been joining us, who's been with us from this vigil. This is the moment now where Dr. Kiju and I are gonna try to talk about what's next, talk about what we can do and what the plan is for the future, which is, Dr. Kiju, just almost an unenviable moment right now, right? To try to figure out in the midst of this. I mean, it's been a long week, it's been a long month, it's been a long year, and it's been a long 2 years going back to the pandemic. There's been so much loss, so much pain, and we can trace this loss going even further back, right? I mean, it feels crazy to say this, but Trayvon was almost 8 years ago, and I still remember the gaping hole that put in my heart. And I remember hugging my grandmother, who left this earth in 2014 when Tamir Rice got shot. I mean, Dr. Kidra, what can we do? How can we, let's see if together we can try to piece together an action plan that hopefully will give you some comfort and hopefully can inspire all of us in this moment to find the next steps and find the path forward.
So I just thank you so much, Blake. And again, thank you to Dr. Diana Alvarez. That was absolutely beautiful. And I know one of the things that we wanted to do was demonstrate that while we say Black Lives Matter, in fact, we do actually recognize that there are many people in solidarity with our communities, that there is anti-Asian racism, there's anti-Black racism, that Latinx folks are being targeted and killed, that queer and trans and non-binary folks are being targeted and killed, and that we need to be speaking out against all forms of oppression. This also happens to be Ramadan. Many Muslim community members are fasting. And this is an incredibly hard time to be fasting and trying to address the spiritual practice of fasting. And I love that Reverend Daunte Hudson talked about this earlier, because in many, many faith communities, there's this understanding that fasting is a way of getting our minds clear and reflecting. And so the three things I would really like to ask us to think about as action steps, and this, we could go on and have 20 action steps, but there are three things I just thought tonight, Blake and I just want to take a few minutes to say these things. One is self-care. People talk about it in very performative ways. I know a lot of us on Instagram or Facebook, and people say, do I love myself? But truly every day, and I will tell you, I'm not as good at it as anyone else, but I'm always thinking about what does it look like for me to understand that to love myself is to love people around me, is to see that my humanity is connected and interdependent with other folks. And so that means mental health care. And I'm going to shout out a couple of organizations. Therapy for Black Girls, which has a number of resources that you can avail yourself of. There are a number of networks that we're going to put in the Facebook chat, but finding a good mental health, social support network, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a prayer group you go to, a meditation practice, being very intentional about that self-care strategy and encouraging our family members to fight the stigma. We're experiencing a lot of trauma right now. And if we think we can survive and do this on our own, it's going to be very difficult to do that. So I love what Derek said earlier, just, being very conscious of recognizing that we need each other, that we're interdependent on one another. You've heard that over and over again tonight. So one action step, I just think always, being really conscious of yourself, how you show up in spaces for your own self is really important. And, we talk about this a lot as with our Black and Brown students, being unapologetically ourselves in spaces that were really not meant for us to survive is really critical. So when we think about Gloria Anzaldúa and Audre Lorde and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and Fannie Lou Hamer and Dr. Joseph E. Lowery and Mrs. Evelyn Lowery, those are individuals who are always encouraging us to think about how we speak up for ourselves and each other. So continue to do that. The second step is be in solidarity with other communities. We just saw the shooting of many Sikh individuals who have been targeted nonstop over the last several years. Really since 9/11, we've watched Asian people be attacked, South Asian people in particular be attacked. And often it's rooted in base ignorance. People don't understand even, Sikh people, for example. And so there's a targeting that's rooted in Islamophobia. And if you are a Christian person or an atheist person, find solidarity with Jewish people who are fighting anti-Semitism, find solidarity with Muslim people who are fighting Islamophobia, making sure that we're working across our different faith traditions and our different belief systems and our different identities, being really clear that we're not going to let anyone, as Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So being very clear about that as an action step, I think is very critical. And I don't want to get preachy. I just want to make sure that we remember that if we saw 6 Asian women being targeted and killed in Atlanta, and we shouldn't be questioning whether they were targeted and killed as a hate crime. If there were any 6 group of people of any identity group, they were targeted and stigmatized and killed intentionally. So we have to speak out against injustice. And then I think the third thing I really, really want to be very clear on is organizing. Yeah, just like we did tonight, it took Blake, myself, and Ms. Lowery probably about 4 days to gather together, and we were able to come together with all of you, right? And so we can be in solidarity with one another by organizing, joining with organizations, now doing so with our self-care practice in mind, with our mental health and physical health in mind, and with our intentionality around building solidarity across groups is really critical. But being very intentional about organizing with other people in our resistance movements. Because sometimes what happens is when we're trying to fight something as big as white supremacy, to be honest, we got to name it as white supremacy, it feels so insurmountable, so overwhelming. What can we really do to interrupt the ways that police brutality is happening? We can do that by organizing. That is what we learned from civil and human rights struggles of the past. Those individuals made sure that they got together, they organized around voter suppression. We saw in Georgia, incredible organizing led by the incredible leader Stacey Abrams and Latasha Brown and many other Black organizers. That was only possible because they actually were freedom dreaming and they manifested those freedom dreams through organizing. So I just want to say those are the 3 action steps we can start with. Blake, I know there are others, but want to definitely shout out those 3 steps because we would never have the right to vote to this day if people had not organized and made sure that we had the opportunity to use our voice through our vote. So I just want to make sure we lift up those strategies, our own self-care and self-preservation, mental health, emotional health, physical health, our ability to be in community with one another and in solidarity with people who are different from us, and our organizing strategies, getting together. We were able to get 25 people on a call who didn't even know 5 days ago or a week ago that they would be speaking tonight. that seems almost impossible. And I'm sure me and Blake felt like it was impossible, but you all were here and you were committed and dedicated and gave your voices to this cause. So I really want to say that I think organizing is essential.
Thank you, Kijua. And yes, man, I wrote down my own notes, but you've touched on almost every one of them, so I'm not going to repeat. But I just, if I can leave you all with anything, and I'm 33, you know, I have 2 young sons sitting in the next room I can hear playing. And as frightened as I was 2 hours ago, thinking about what the world was like for them 14 years from now, I feel optimistic because of everybody on this call, because I know that the future is bright. We just have to remember to get there, and we're only going to get there together. I'm only going to say a couple of things. I'm not going to be long. We've gone a little bit longer than our time, and I thank you all for staying with us. If I would say anything to you in terms of an action plan, you know, I just wrote down 3 R's: rebuild, reclaim, and remain. And what do I mean by that? Rebuild, we have to take ownership of our communities, whether these communities are Black communities, brown communities, LGBTQIA communities. We will only be as protected and as powerful as we make ourselves. And in part of that comes with us rebuilding them, investing in our own culture, uplifting our own voices. I mean, we have seen throughout this, if this Zoom can tell you nothing, you will see the power of our voices. I mean, I can't even go through all of the powerful voices I heard tonight because I'm gonna cry. But I mean, Diana, I mean, all of the students, Derek, Lloyd, Miss Lowry, all, forgive me, Dr. French. I can't name them all because it's bringing back emotions, but just remembering what that was, the power of our voices. And if we truly trust in that, and we trust in ourselves to rebuild amongst our own, to uplift our communities and organize to really dismantle, name, and tackle systemic racism, that's how we'll actually achieve change. The second point I was saying was reclaiming. You know, the vote is, I know for many of us, particularly in our generation, you know, we've heard about the vote, right? We voted in the last election. We came out. We turned Georgia blue. We impacted change. We felt a sense of accomplishment, which is kind of cold and cruel because we got to enjoy a sense of accomplishment 3 months ago that it took them less than 2 months to try to take from us, right? But don't let that sense of accomplishment go. The only way we get change in an institution is by participating in the institution. Vote, continue to vote. We need DAs that are sympathetic to Black causes, to brown causes. We need sheriffs that are sympathetic. We need elected officials that are sympathetic. If we're truly going to change policy, we have to continue to vote. And we can't let that go. It's not the only path we have of resistance, but it's a key one. And the final one, as Dr. Kijua said, and I'm not going to relive it, but it's just to remain hopeful, just remain trusting. It's hard, it's dark, feels bad right now. And I don't blame you if you feel bad, but feel the light coming at the end of the tunnel. Remember that there were individuals, and I could just speak for one, who I used to sit with every day, who was Dr. Lowry, who, when he was a young man, could never imagine a day when there would be a Black president. But when he was 90, he spoke at that Black president's inauguration. It may feel dark. It may feel like things with progress is slow, but change occurs. We see it. It will happen if you believe in it, if you commit to it, if you stay with it, and if you keep investing yourselves, we'll get there. I have nothing. I'm not going to preach to you. This is not a time for preaching. This is a time for us just to trust each other, love each other, be there with each other. I'm so grateful for you all. So grateful for you, Dr. Kijua. Grateful for you, Miss Lowry, for helping us to put this together. Grateful to you, Diana, your words, your song. Grateful to all the students who gave tribute. And now, and I'm grateful for the lot. It may sound weird, but I'm grateful for the lives of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all those we have lost, because maybe if they can just inspire us to hold on a little longer and to keep up the fight, will actually see change. We're going to get the verdict in the Derek Chauvin case probably soon. Remain prayerful, remain peaceful, remain loving, and remain together. Dr. Kidd, do you have any final words before we close this vigil out?
No, I just want to say thank you again to everyone. It's been wonderful to be in peace and solidarity with you. And we're going to continue to resist racism. That's it. We're going to resist it with every fiber of our being. We're going to save enough for ourselves, and we're going to continue to speak up. So thank you all so much. We hope you feel encouraged and you stay engaged in whatever ways feel right for you and feel good for you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night. Love, embrace justice. Be safe. And we're down.